A'ja Wilson has always been the face of dominance in women's basketball, a three-time champion, MVP, and leader who earned her respect the hard way. But when the Saudi Arabian Women's Basketball League released a bombshell report valuing Caitlin Clark at nearly 10 times more than any other WNBA player, that respect suddenly felt fragile. The report didn't deal in opinions or hype, it dealt in cold, hard numbers. It quantified something the league had been quietly avoiding for months. Caitlin Clark isn't just a basketball player, she's an economy. And that revelation sent A'ja Wilson, Nike executives, and the entire WNBA spiraling into chaos. The moment that report went public, social media exploded. It wasn't just that Clark's market value was higher. It was astronomical, $50 million a year. That's not just more than the WNBA's highest salary. It's more than the combined payrolls of multiple teams. The Saudis weren't playing games. They were signaling that they wanted to dominate women's sports on a global scale. And at the center of that plan was a 22-year-old guard from Iowa who'd only been in the league for 2 seasons. For A'ja Wilson, that realization hit differently. She'd given years of her life, brought home titles, carried the league through thin years, and built her name brick by brick. Yet, in a flash, it seemed all of that could be eclipsed by someone who hadn't even reached her prime. A'ja's frustration finally spilled onto social media in a cryptic post that read, "What's delayed isn't denied." She didn't name names, but everyone knew who she meant. The timing was brutal. Nike had just announced a $28 million deal with Caitlin Clark, the largest endorsement contract in women's basketball history. But months later, there was still no signature shoe, no major marketing rollout, no campaign. It was as if Nike had frozen in fear, unsure of how to celebrate its golden girl without igniting backlash. Whispers started spreading. Nike was delaying Clark's shoe to avoid bad optics, giving a white sophomore her own sneaker line before a black, established MVP like Wilson could spark outrage. And by trying to balance perception over merit, Nike ended up alienating both sides. But behind the scenes, things were even messier. When Nike finally announced A'ja Wilson's first signature shoe, the A1, fans saw it as redemption, a long overdue acknowledgement of her greatness. What they didn't know was that A'ja had known about the deal for 2 years, but was bound by a non-disclosure agreement. While fans battled online accusing Nike of favoritism, the company had already secured Wilson's deal. It just couldn't say anything. The irony was brutal. What began as a fight for recognition was built on misunderstanding. Yet by the time the truth came out, it didn't matter. Caitlin Clark had already transcended basketball. Clark's rise had changed everything. She wasn't just breaking records. She was breaking the entire model of women's sports economics. The Indiana Fever's value had skyrocketed from $90 million to $340 million since drafting her. Their games drew NBA-level attendance. Television viewership for Clark's matchups averaged 1.2 million, 6 times the league average. And her highlight reels trended in multiple languages across the globe. When she played, arenas sold out. When she sat out, ticket prices crashed. And when she got injured, WNBA ratings dropped overnight. The numbers didn't lie. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a star, she was the league's lifeline. Meanwhile, the WNBA finals without her were a disaster. Tickets sold for as little as $6. Entire sections of arenas sat empty. The MVP-led Aces fought for another championship, but the energy was gone. The spectacle that Clark brought simply couldn't be replicated. A'ja Wilson, still dominating on the court, found herself playing in front of smaller audiences than Clark's preseason appearances. It was a cruel twist. Proof that success in women's basketball now meant more than stats or rings. It meant visibility. And Clark had all of it. The Saudi League's arrival only deepened the tension. Reports revealed they weren't just valuing Clark highly, they were preparing to offer her a deal worth $100 million, possibly more. European and Asian leagues began circling too, ready to throw massive contracts at WNBA stars. But every single one of those leagues agreed on one thing. Caitlin Clark was the crown jewel. She was the player who could legitimize their entire operation overnight. WNBA executives panicked. Leaked emails showed officials discussing emergency measures to keep Clark in the US. Special contracts, salary cap exemptions, even revenue-sharing deals. One executive reportedly wrote, "Losing Clark would set us back 20 years. That one sentence summed up everything. The WNBA needed her more than she needed them. In the middle of this storm stood A'ja Wilson, caught between justified pride and painful realization. In a candid interview, she said, "I've worked my whole life for this, and it feels like none of it matters." That vulnerability struck a chord across sports media. because deep down, everyone understood what she meant. Talent doesn't always equal marketability. Skill doesn't guarantee stardom. And in the modern era, influence is the new currency. Asia might be the better basketball player, but Caitlin Clark is the global phenomenon, an athlete who sells out arenas and moves entire markets. It wasn't fair, but it was real. The divide between generations became glaring. Younger players idolized Clark, seeing her as the future. Veterans sided with Wilson, defending the old-school ethos of earning your shine through time and consistency. The league itself started to fracture under the weight of it. Locker rooms were split, fan bases polarized, and every social media post became ammunition for one side or the other. Even Nike's internal debates leaked, revealing that the company had hired a crisis management team to navigate the controversy. They feared that whatever they did, whether releasing Clark's shoe early or prioritizing Wilson's, they'd be accused of bias. And in trying to please everyone, they pleased no one. Yet underneath all the noise, a simple truth remained. This wasn't about Asia versus Caitlin. It was about evolution. The WNBA had spent decades searching for its Michael Jordan, a player who could transcend the sport and draw the world's eyes. They finally found her. But instead of uniting around her, the league seemed to crumble under the weight of jealousy and outdated hierarchies. The real conflict wasn't between two women. It was between eras, between the builders and the beneficiaries, between the players who fought to make the WNBA survive and the player who made it matter to millions. The financial implications are staggering. Cities are now bidding to host Caitlin Clark's games. Hotels, restaurants, and local economies thrive when she's in town. Analysts estimate that a single Clark game can generate up to $5 million in local revenue. That's LeBron-level impact from a second-year player in a league that once struggled to fill half an arena. And while A'ja Wilson remains the heart and soul of the WNBA's competitive core, Clark has become its financial engine. That duality is both the league's strength and its curse. Now the WNBA faces an impossible dilemma. Embrace Clark as the centerpiece and risk alienating stars like Wilson, or try to appease both and risk losing Clark to international money. Either path leads to turmoil. And as the Saudis wait with billion-dollar offers in hand, the clock is ticking. Caitlin Clark's next decision could determine whether the WNBA ascends to new heights or collapses under its own contradictions. A'ja Wilson's legacy will endure. Her accolades guarantee that. But history remembers more than winners. It remembers icons. And right now, Caitlin Clark is shaping up to be just that. The league stands at a crossroads, forced to confront uncomfortable truths about what defines value in women's sports. Merit, charisma, and marketability have collided, and there's no going back. So now it's your turn. Who do you think truly defines the future of women's basketball? A'ja Wilson, the champion who built the foundation, or Caitlin Clark, the phenomenon who changed the game? Should loyalty and legacy still matter more than economics and influence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going. And if you want to stay updated on every twist of this unfolding rivalry, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because this isn't just a basketball story anymore. It's a revolution, and it's only just beginning.